You get to fire missiles at planes and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, this would be pretty cool.
We're here today with Andrew to share his experiences of life in the military, becoming a small business owner, getting into debt, and then finding tools to find a way out.
I knew, because I'd owned a business, I knew it would pick up. But when Dad had died, we had just had a big order, and then I knew I needed more money. So I started getting personal loans. Then when I really realized and started thinking about it, I was like, this is out of control.
How deep in the hole were you going?
$250,000.
So Andrew, would you encourage people to go to Veteran Debt Assistance?
100% I would.
VDA Podcast. Today we're joined by Andrew. Andrew, good to see you today.
Good to see you.
Lots to talk about, lots to tell. You have a lot of backgrounds and stories, and the way that you got through things I think will be so helpful to everybody who's watching here today. So we appreciate you spending the time here. I guess let's talk about Georgia. Tell me about Georgia.
Well, Georgia's kind of going through a little catastrophe right now with the hurricane that just come through. So they're still doing all the cleanups and everything. But other than that, weather's pretty good. So looking forward to getting back soon. You
got fond memories there?
Yeah, for the most part.
For the most part?
For the most part.
Well, take us to 2005. What is it that got you into the military? Did you ever think when you were in high school that this is something you wanted to do, or what inspired you to even join?
I had never thought about it in high school, but when I was younger, I used to like to play with like G.I. Joes and stuff, and Dad was in the Army, and he actually was at the University of Florida down there on a scholarship, his interview, and when he got home, he had a draft letter in the mail. So he got drafted into the Army. And he got to bring home his like military clothes when he got out, and I used to always dress up in them. And I never thought anything else about it, but then I had an opportunity that the Army had a golf team, and I wanted to play golf, so I went in and found out about it.
That's different. I've heard a lot of inspirations and entrances into the Army. Golf. Well, what is it about golf that got you hooked?
It's like my little happy place. Parents moved on a golf course. It's in the backyard, so it's kind of like, hey, might as well figure out how to play. Picked it up, enjoyed it, and never looked back.
That's amazing. And you got the opportunity, or presented the opportunity to do so with the Army. Going into that first day in boot camp, take me back there. What's going through your mind there? I mean, you want to play golf, but now all of a sudden you're on a military base.
Well, the first day at boot camp was kind of interesting for me because where we had to do basic training, they actually put us in cattle cars. So you could not see out of the cattle car, but you just knew when you came across a cattle guard that you were where you didn't want to be. So when they opened it out, everybody started freaking out. People were crying. And one guy started fighting the drill sergeants. And I was actually over there laughing. I had like tears in my eyes. I thought it was so funny. And then they started hollering at me, and then we all got in the line, and they ended up separating everybody so we could go like do our in-processing and everything. And for some reason, we were there like an extra month because something had happened. So with our in-processing, we kind of got to like hang out before basic training like officially started. So we got to like know each other. We were kind of like in barracks rooms, but it was fun.
Who were some of the first guys? You remember some of the first guys that you met that you became friends with?
One of the first ones I will never forget. He was a Native American. His last name was spelled out TWO babies, two babies.
Two babies.
Yeah, and there was these guys used to make fun of him. And, I had common sense enough. I used to like to watch Westerns. I was like, the Indians get pretty mean. So they kept messing with him, and finally that boy just fought, like all three of them, beat them all up. And I was like, I told you. I just laid there in the bunk.
Did you find that basic training, was it tough? Was it something you enjoyed? Some people really get a thrill out of it. I mean, there's some people who are built for it. There's lots of people who there's something about the discipline and something about the structure that they don't have in their life that, being in basic training changes something or transforms something inside them. Did you find that basic training was something that you took to?
Well, it was a little different for me, being that I knew that I was going in there to play golf. So, I went in there with the mentality, not knowing what to expect, but I knew that I was going to pass everything. And I already knew that. But when I was a week into it, the golf had got canceled.
Oh, no.
So I was like, okay, let me just like redo this, because I had to have an MOS, being that I was already in there, which I was Air Defense Artillery. So, I made the best out of basic training.
Did that take the wind out of your sails at all? I mean,
No, because I knew I had to be there, and I was like, okay, I can. There's not a whole lot I could do. When you're in basic training, you can't really communicate with anybody. So, I just kind of went back to the board in my head and redid it, and I was like, I'll figure it all out when I'm able to, because they kind of just said it was delayed. So, when I got out, I'd figure it out. But no, I was top 5 in the class. I mean, I enjoyed it. I loved it. I loved every minute of it.
What's your current handicap?
Scratch.
Okay. All right. So you're serious about the game. You said you had to choose an MOS. You ended up in air defense artillery. Tell me about air defense artillery.
I liked the Army, and I also had a thing with planes. So I was like, get best of both worlds. So you get to fire missiles at planes and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, this would be pretty cool. So that's kind of how I got to that.
Was there a, kind of a learning curve in terms of, there's a lot of technology clearly involved, particularly, we're talking about 2005, 2008 that you were serving there. Was there a learning curve for you in terms of getting involved and understanding the technology you were dealing with?
Well, there wasn't so much of a learning curve because, like I said, when I went in there to play golf, I had to have an MOS. So I was kind of like, I'll just pick this because I knew I really wasn't going to be doing it. But then when that happened, I was like, okay, now I'm really going to be doing it. I'm glad I actually, looked and picked something I wanted to do. But there was a lot of interesting things that we had to learn. We had to learn 40 different helicopters, 40 different planes. They would show like a piece of like the part of the plane that you'd have to see it from the sky and stuff, which that was hard to figure out because it could be night or day or certain light or whatever. Because, if you're in a combat situation, you can't just be shooting friendlies. You have to guarantee you know what the target is. So that was hard at first, but after a few months, you've kind of figured it out.
Kind of I would say a challenging period of time during this particular part of the war in Iraq to be in the Army, really in the thick of things. Things were still really getting wild. Were there concerns in your mind about being deployed?
We kind of expected it, but I didn't know to what extent until I actually got to the duty station over there at Fort Hood, Texas. But it was mainly from what, you weren't doing your job when you went overseas, because, you could be a medic, a truck driver, tank driver, air defense artillery, and you all wound up doing, convoys and stuff. So you had to do whatever you were told. So it wasn't exactly you were going to be doing your job.
Well, it seems like, you went in to play golf. That kind of got taken away. Now you find yourself in a position where, there's serious combat going on and everybody's going over there. Fate comes back around again and kind of pulled you out of the fire. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, when there was 8 of us that left Fort Benning, Georgia, to go to Fort Hood. And when we got there, they put 7 of them over in one group and me over here. And they said, you're going to Iraq in like 2 weeks. They're like, go ahead and put your stuff over here. And then the rest of y'all go get processed. So I went to the golf course.
What's the conversation amongst the guys being told this is what's going to happen with you?
It was like everything was a lot at one time, but I wasn't processing everything. So I was like, I'm just going to go to the golf course and just kind of figure things out, have fun, and relax, because apparently I'm not going to be around here for a little while.
You take it really well and you're being kind of lighthearted about it, but that's a lot.
Honestly, there was nothing I could do about it, So you make every situation the best you can. No point of trying to whine about something that you can't control.
And I guess that's part of the deal. It's a full voluntary military. You volunteered to be here, so whatever's going to happen, it's kind of your choice in that sense. You don't kind of feel any regrets about that.
No, once you sign that dotted line, you're owned by the government.
That's the way it works.
They control you.
So then what happens?
Anyways, when I went to the golf course, I ran into an old guy out there, and I was like, hey, you want to play together? I've never played out here. He's like, neither have I. So we ended up playing together, and he's like, we got done, and, he had told me to call him Uncle Ray. And I didn't think anything about it. Just old men, you always have little chit chat and talk with them. And anyways, when we get done, he's like, oh, when are you going to play again? I was like, I'm supposed to go to Iraq in 2 weeks. And he's like, do you want to go? And I was like, not really. I don't know. I was like, it's kind of, all too much. And he's like, well, I got some good news. He's like, I'm the 3-star general getting sworn in tomorrow. And then I almost broke my neck saluting, parade res. I looked like an idiot out there. I didn't know what to do. Then it was the first time I ever been around that.
How do we move on to getting out of the military then at that point?
When the time was for me they were going to deploy us again, and there was nothing that we could do. I was going to get stop loss because my contract was going to run out when I'd be over there, and they already had told us we were going to be over there for about 18 months. And the general told me that, you know, he was having to go and I wasn't going to be around him, so he gave me the option if I wanted to get out or if I wanted to go. I said, well, what would you do? He said, I'd get out. So he gave me some paperwork and got out a little early.
That's just one of those things where it's like, you know, how often does that happen there? If it was your time to go, you were going to go.
Yeah, I wouldn't have had a problem because, I mean, when you're, you know, 24, 25 and you're getting paid like extra money and you're not going to be able to see it until like pretty much when you get back. So you can have a nice little nest egg. I don't know if I would have saved it when I got back. Probably would have spent it, being that you know, didn't really spend money in a year and a half, but, you know, it worked out for the best.
Overall, how do you feel about that 2005 to 2008? Did you have a good experience in the U.S. Army?
I had a lot of great experiences. I had some bad experiences, but it's just about, you know, you have some people that are in charge of you that try to get on power trips and stuff like that, but you just have to know kind of how to outsmart them or do what you're supposed to do, and to a certain extent, and then tell somebody. Like, I remember one situation where it was like 110 degrees and they were making us fill sandbags up, and we had to do 300 of them, and we did like 150. And I said, why are we even doing this? And he said, because when y'all get done, he said, you're going to pour them all out. And I said, I'm not doing this. I said, you're about to kill us. One old guy was already passed out. So I went over there and said something to the one of our commanders when we got back over there, and that guy ended up getting in trouble for it.
Once again, you're kind of on the right side of things in the way you're thinking. What would you say are the greatest takeaways you got from your time in the Army? What did you learn?
Well, the military will teach you a lot of things. It's how you make it. You know, when you go in there, you have to have the right mindset. You're going to meet a lot of people. You're not going to like everybody, but you're going to find people that you do like, because there's people from, you know, all different states, different lifestyles, whatever. You'll really have a fun time if you make it fun. It's not as bad as what people have made it out to be. But, I mean, basic training was my favorite time while I was in the military.
I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that, but that's interesting. Like you're saying, sometimes you're just built for that.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
You know, I have, my brother is retired U.S. Army as well. One of the things that he found that kind of pushed him to the decision to leave and to retire from the military was that, you know, he felt that in his role as commanding and being in charge of people, that the quality of the individuals, what they had inside, if they were going to be a danger to themselves and to be a danger to the people around them, there's no reason for them to be around. But he was finding more and more that he was in a situation where he was being tasked with trying to bring things out of people that just wasn't in them to begin with. You got to have something in you to start with in order to have a success in your military career.
I knew when I went into the military, I wanted to do my time, but I knew I didn't want to make a career out of it. But I knew that for sure, because, you know, like I said, there's a lot of certain people, and, you know, sometimes you have to be attached to them for a long time, and there's things you don't want to do. And I was like, I don't want to do this for 20 years. So I knew when my time was over, I was going to get out.
As you know now, you have a date that you're going to get out. Did you make plans? Did you have plans? What was your plan for getting out?
When I was going to get out, I knew I was going to get in my truck and I was going to drive straight back to Georgia. And I will never forget, I drove straight back, never stopped. I stopped 3 times, and that's because I had to get gas 3 times. I drove the whole way through Christmas, I think it was, when I drove.
Wow. And what's going through your mind? What are you thinking about on that drive?
Yeah, I'm going back to Georgia.
It's plain and simple.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I got out and I realized that, you know, hey, I'm going back to Georgia. I'm going to see my family. My dad, he only knew I was coming. Mom didn't know I was coming. You know, they were married and she never did. And then I showed up at the door at like 11 o'clock at night. She's like, what are you doing here?
Describe that moment to me.
Well, I mean, it was, first of all, I had to kind of like walk around in the driveway after riding for so long. I had to kind of stretch out. But then, you know, I text Dad. I said, I'm here. And he opened the door and Mom's face lit up. She's like, what are you doing here? I was like, I'm out of the military. She's like, for how long? I was like, permanently. She's like, well, what are you going to do now? I was like, I haven't thought that far yet. I said, I just wanted to come back home.
Well, you make it back to Georgia. That was your goal. You're back with Mom and Dad, hugs all around. Now you get some rest. Maybe put on some different clothes, You go see some people? What do you do now that you're a civilian?
First thing I actually did is when I got up that next day is I went to the golf course and caught up with a lot of my friends because, that's like the place to hang out. We had the pool and stuff up there and clubhouse, eat up there and stuff like that. We just caught up and I was going to figure out what I wanted to do next in life. I knew that I didn't have the patience to want to go back to school, but, I did it for a little while, but I would get so burnt out. I could not sit there and do all that. I could probably do internet courses now, but like back then we didn't have that.
Right.
But, I did odd jobs here and there. And then my father owned a company and, I started working with him. And, that's pretty much what I did.
Tell me about the family business.
His company was a meat brokerage where he would sell like straight loads of pork to like a sausage manufacturer or beef and stuff like that. So basically we would never have to touch the product. We just have to carry the paper on it. Then we'd get paid. And then along the way, he bought a seasoning company from a lady that wanted to sell it.
Seasoning?
Like sausage seasonings, barbecue rubs and stuff like that. So anyways, I started doing that for him.
Are you any good on the grill?
Oh, I love grilling.
I'm a big griller myself, so we have that in common. We're going to have to challenge you to smoke a shoulder at some point, but we'll get to that. At some point, you got to step out on your own. You got to do your own thing. Tell me about the thought process of, perhaps going into business on your own or taking over the family business, or what was the process there?
Well, when Dad had the seasoning company, that was eventually he was going to give that to me, but I wanted to, we decided to open up another one. And so I ended up, owning that. And what we were going to do was compete against each other to see who, would sell the most. And that's how I became doing that with mine. And then him and Mom were going through a divorce. And she kind of just went a little crazy, I guess. And she moved to North Carolina with my sister. Then when COVID had happened, Dad was supposed to get the COVID shot on a Monday, and he went in on a Sunday, and he stayed in there for a week and 5 days and ended up dying from COVID.
Oh, my goodness.
So while all of this was going on, my mom had come down there, and it took everything. So her and my sister cleaned the clock, and, the only thing I had was my business that I had. But I had some stuff up there because Dad had a warehouse. She took all that stuff, so I kind of like had to restart from scratch.
Something inside you doesn't quit.
No, I didn't quit. I actually enjoyed it because you meet a lot of real nice people, from all over, and you have bonds with them. I mean, you would never see them face to face 95% of the time, but you'd have long phone conversations and you tell them how to do things. They tell you how they do things and stuff. So that's what I, really enjoyed the most about it. But when COVID had hit, our business was booming, but it was just, it was hard to be able to get paid when you're having people that owe you money, like checks and stuff like that, and then having to pay manufacturers and distributors and stuff like that, especially when you're growing. So
when the whole pandemic really was starting, none of us really knew what was going to happen. Was it going to be a week? Was it going to be 3 months? Was it going to be a year? I don't think any of us thought it was going to turn into what it turned into. When, as a business person, a small business owner, did you it started to get shaky? We started to see like, okay, well, I can keep this going, but something's not right here.
For me, it was kind of the opposite. I was actually doing more business because people wanted to start doing stuff on their own, like smoking their own meats and stuff like that instead of buying it. So, it started off good. But like I said, mine's kind of like seasonal. When the COVID started, really, people, were really starting to like die off and the shots and stuff were coming around. And it had people all freaked out with masks and stuff. That's when it kind of like went dead. So, but, everything was fine for a little bit, but it just never really wanted to pick back up.
You were doing everything you could to keep things going. At some point, it starts being a struggle to keep turning a profit, but you don't want to just close the business. Talk to me about this period of time where, you're in charge of this thing and you got to decide, am I going to keep trudging along? How can I keep things going for now? And I guess this is where we start to understand how you got into some financial straits there.
Where I really got into it is when Dad had died. We had just had a big order, and I'd have to order like 7 pallets of seasoning at one time, which would be like 45 times 5 worth of boxes on like each pallet. So, that's $30,000, $40,000. when I'd got all that in and it slowed down, I was sitting on that. And, being that we were growing, we didn't really have a lot of money in the bank because we were just having to keep grow.
With the business as you're running it now, are these perishable items, or is this stuff that you can keep sitting, or is this stuff you got to move?
It's stuff that we could keep because it's like seasoning, it's got like salt and stuff in it.
Gotcha.
So it's good for like a year. There's really not an expiration date. You'll pretty much sell it before then. But when you're sitting on that much and business has started to slow down, then all of a sudden you can't pay for it. You got to, because you have like a certain amount of time to pay for it. That's what I started having to get loans and stuff like that.
You told me a little story, before we started the interview, about the first and last time you got on a motorcycle. And I think it has a lot to talk about your character. You seem like, you're an energetic person. You're a driven person. You're not scared of anything. Well, what is it that you were averse about motorcycles? What got you on a motorcycle, and what got you off a motorcycle?
Liquid courage got me on a motorcycle, but I told him, I said, I'm not going to ride this motorcycle for 2 years. And liquid courage, finally, I got on it, and it was miserable. But it was actually pretty fun riding. But I was scared to hit the brakes, so I just let it kind of, like I said, slow down. And then anyways, where the driveway was at the house is where it was straight downhill. So anyways, when I went to get off of it, my flip-flops had already fell off somewhere down the road. So I went to step off and stepped on the exhaust pipe. It melted to my foot. I started hollering, I'm about to drop it. So needless to say, I never rode a motorcycle again, and I kept my foot in a keg the whole night.
And that speaks to your character as an individual, is that, once again, you don't always make the best choices. You somehow survive.
Yeah, somehow.
But you have the character and strength to know that I'm not going to repeat that mistake again. I'm not going to do that thing again. Moving forward to, dealing with the business now, we're in COVID, we're in the pandemic, things are starting to get rough. You're taking on more loans to try and keep things going. At what point do you realize I'm really underwater here and we really have a big problem?
Well, see, in my mind, I knew, because I'd owned a business for either 3 or 4 years, I was not having any problems with it. So I knew it would pick up. But when I started getting the loans, I was like, okay, we'll be able to pay it off because, the business will pick back up when the months come around. And, it would start slowing down. And then, you're not paying like the vendors on time. So then they're kind of like hesitant on wanting to sell you, or then they have certain lead times. And then when I realized that, I was getting these personal loans because I got a big business loan. I'd got an SBA loan, and, I grew the stuff with that. And then I knew I needed more money. So I started getting personal loans. And then when I realized that every time I was getting paid, I was having to turn around and pay them, and I had nothing to show for it, that I had an issue going on.
Did you have any mentors or advice or other people maybe in the industry or in other businesses that could kind of, give you some advice or tell you their stories about what to do in that particular situation?
Not really. I only pretty much talked to her at the house because, I didn't know what to do, and I knew she was like a financial guru. So I'm like, we got to make something happen. But, she's one of those that'll let me learn off my own mistakes or something, because she knows if I do it, I won't do it again. I was just putting Band-Aids on it by getting those loans. Then I realized it was way too much.
And it could have been, really easy to just keep rolling that ball down the hill. I mean, at some point you have to say to yourself, something's got to change here. I either got to stop or, I don't know, got to keep rolling those dice. You have those moments where it's like, you know what? I got a wife, I got a home to take care of here. I'm just going to keep rolling these dice.
Well, when I really realized that I had had enough of it is when I was having to pay the government money. Okay. So I was having to, because, with the taxes and stuff, we were having to pay them $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. That was a year for like state tax and stuff. We had filed for like an extension, and somehow the extension had got lost. They lost it, but they swear it was us that did it. But I didn't find out about it till about 3 years later. So I don't remember how much it was, but I know how much it is now. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, I can't even pay the government back, the money. And then on top of that, with all the interest the interest on it and penalties and late fees and stuff,
it starts to pile up.
I think it like tripled. I did it the other day. I think it's like $10,000.
Was there ever a time that pride kept you from being realistic about the situation that you were in? Or were you always honest with yourself and what was going
I'm
on?
not going to say it was pride. I honestly don't think I was thinking at the time because I knew I was like, hey, I know this will make money. And then, I was like, it'll be all right. It'll be all right. Because I guess I didn't want to think about it. But then when I really realized and started thinking about it, I was like, this is out of control. I was like, this is nothing good is going to come out of this. I said, I'm going to ruin a perfectly good company if I don't, figure something out. And I sat down, had long nights talking with her about it. And
What was she telling you?
she was telling me that, I had it made with the company, but, there's certain things that I need to do different. There's certain ways that we need to go back to the drawing board and figure things out to make it run successful again.
Had you seen other friends or people in the industry kind of fold during this period of time? Did you see other people lose it all?
I've seen a lot of people like sell out and stuff, but it was kind of like I didn't have to have a building the way I was doing it because because I was selling it so quick, all I needed was 2 big storage units. And I had shelving and stuff in there. So as soon as I'd get the product, I could pretty much move it as soon as it came in. If I had just planned it just right.
Was there a moment where you said, no, this is over, we're done, business is done, everything's done, I'm gonna have to find something else to do?
I didn't want to admit that I wanted to shut it down, but I needed to shut it down because if I didn't shut it down, it was going to keep costing me more money. And it was money that I really didn't have. So, I had to shut it down and put a pause on it.
In the darkest moments for the business professionally, I mean, how deep were you?
There were some days I didn't want nothing to do with it. Like, you know what I'm saying? You just kind of wanted to wake up and be like, I hope this is over.
Can you give us, financially, roughly, like, how deep in the hole were you going?
$250,000.
That's.
But a big part of that was that SBA loan, though. But I got a payment thing on that, which I'll be paying that off till I'm pretty much dead. But I already knew that, which wasn't a problem. But with the other loans, that's where it got bad.
You managed it to between you and your wife. You keep a level head about it. You're not going to give up. You chose not to give up. And you're going to keep going. And you decide at some point we got to find a solution that works. And I think we can talk more about the bright side. We've gone to the deep side now. I want to get into talking about getting out of the situation you're in.
The part that scared me the most is being that, like I said, I told you earlier, I'd been to college 7 times and I dropped out all 7 times because I was making more money gambling on the golf course, playing golf than I was. So when, I'm 42 now, so this is like, 38 maybe. I'm like, who wants to hire somebody that doesn't have a college education in the society nowadays? So I made like a resume and I'm like, I don't know if anybody's going to want to do this, but I knew I had some places that I could go probably get a job with some like friends of my father's and stuff like that. So I had one company reach out to me about food brokerage, which is what I already knew how to do. So, I took that job with them so I could make money to pay off all the other debt that I had so I could try to speed up the process of making it to where I could do my own company again. Because I like that freedom of having my own company because I could come and go as I wanted to,
Is there anything, if we look back to like when you first started to get underwater, is there anything you would have done differently now looking back?
I would have had a better game plan instead of just like flying off the seat of my pants because I guess I was getting greedy by all the sales and stuff that we were doing that I was, wasn't paying attention to, how am I going to have to pay all this other stuff back? And then, when you own your own business, it's not just you're paying manufacturers back. You're having to pay all other things. And I wasn't factoring all that in there at the time. So I would take a different approach. I would take a deep breath and just kind of slow down and have a game plan on paper.
You mentioned about, not having necessarily a formal education in business from a school, but you had the example of your dad and him running the company.
Well,
So
I knew that I could, I didn't need school to teach me what I already knew about all that because, I've been around it my whole life. It's just, nowadays with society, people want to see it on paper or whatever. Oh, you graduated from here, so you might know more about somebody that's been around it. So that was the only thing I was pretty much worried about. But, it never really affected me like I thought it would.
Were there ever a moment where your wife was like, honey, we can't do this?
She was not going to let nothing happen to us. That's why she went and got, she's working 2 jobs because she was going to make sure that, the family and the kids were taken care of. So we could still try to maintain what lifestyle we had. And it was my job to start paying all the stuff back to get us out of the hole with the company.
And not give up.
Exactly. And I still to this day haven't given up on it.
That's the key. Well, Andrew, we've talked about getting into the darkness, and now we got to turn things around and finding solutions, and particularly with VDA and the tools are available and how you're able to get out of it. But before that, I want to go back. There's one thing that we didn't talk about is the kids. It's really important as parents, as a husband, as a father, that you want to guide, you want to be a good example. But sometimes we want to insulate our kids from the drama and the pain and just how hard it is of being a dad and being a husband and getting through this. Tell me a little bit about insulating your kids from things when they were getting bad.
We didn't say anything to them. We acted like, they were still like our oldest, which is 11 now. She's still in ballet, and now she's doing piano also. So that would keep her mind off of not knowing the situation that we were in. And with the baby, she's 3. She didn't know anything. But, we just keep them sheltered as much from knowing personal stuff like that.
And clearly, whenever you see their faces, that's kind of the goal. That's the reason you're doing everything you're doing, right?
Well, I'll tell them eventually one day if they want to know, because I wouldn't hide it from them, but it's just not really need to know kind of thing right now.
We talked about the building debt. You're taking on these loans. Things are starting to pile up. The bills are piling up. One thing which I think is a universal experience to anybody who's been in any kind of debt is dealing with debt collectors and bill collectors. Talk to me a little bit about that experience and the stress that puts on the situation.
Well, it's all fun and games at first with them because they want to be nice, but if all of a sudden you miss a payment, then they want to threaten to sue you or take you to court, and then you're going to have to pay for expenses. And then the next thing that comes out of my mouth is, well, if I can't pay you this, and how am I going to pay for that? So, you're just barking up a wrong tree. But all they do is harass. And
did it ever make you less confident in yourself? Did you ever take the stuff personally? Because sometimes it can get real personal and they can try to break you down.
Honestly, if anything, it really pissed me off more than anything. And I found a way to make it work out in my favor, because as long as you're paying them something, then there's nothing they can really say or do to you. So I was like, that's fine. I'll just give them each $5 here and there every month or whatever. So if you really want to, act crazy about something, because, everybody struggles, and all of a sudden they're quick to give out the money, but when all of a sudden they want it back with all their expensive fees on there, it's like nobody wants to help anybody out.
It seems sometimes that you're never going to get out of it, but you try to find tools and you try to find solutions. Let's talk about how you came to find VDA, Veterans Debt Assistance.
She was on Facebook one day, and she said she saw something about veterans, and I don't have social media. I don't use any of that kind of stuff. But anyways, she couldn't remember what it was. So I was like, well, look. And she found it. And then I called, and it was instant right then and there.
Well, tell me about that phone call. What was it about the phone call and the interaction that let you know that, hey, this is something that might work?
Well, I had called, and the guy that I talked to, his name was Blake. I'll remember that. And I actually was already doing debt consolidation. I'd found a company. I cannot remember who it was at first, but I had just signed up with it, and I put my first payment in there because I was like, I feel like, this is real doable. And then I talked to him, and all of a sudden it was cutting half on what I was already doing. I was kind of like, well, why are they so much cheaper or whatever? And they were telling me about helping out veterans. So anyways, I was like, I'm all on board with y'all. Let me cancel this other one real quick.
It's an important point that you make there, is that, one of the ways that people find themselves stuck in these holes and can't get out is we start to lose trust, particularly if you're dealing with a small business or even personal debt. You get in these situations where it's like you run into situations, you even try to convince yourself into put yourself in some kind of scams. You're really wary of people. You're really wary of what's going on, and you don't want to make things worse. How do you trust yourself, or how do you build the trust, or how did VDA give you that trust that this is a good direction to go?
It was just, to be honest with you, it was good from start to finish. Just the communication and talking to the people. You kind of felt like how me and you were talking, like we've known each other forever. That's what it felt like, versus other ones, like other companies that just feel like they're doing a job, just trying to collect a paycheck. But with them, it felt good. It felt really good.
Well, talk to me a little bit about, what specific tools you found most helpful. What were the things that helped you out of the situation that you were in?
Well, I liked how I got the payment set up. They did it the way that I needed it done. So each time that I get paid, it automatically comes out of that. So I'm doing 2 payments a month, and it just automatically gets drafted. Don't have to worry about it. They call, send me emails or whatever, checking up on me, want to know if everything's all right. Nobody else would. I've never had one of the debt collectors that gave me a loan ever asked how I was doing other than trying to give me more money. And I'm like, well, you just sitting here trying to collect it. Why are you trying to give me more money when I can't even pay what I already got?
So there's a personal touch there that's
Yeah.
different. Tell me a little bit more about that.
It just feels like it's someone that actually cares, that actually wants to help you out, wants to see you succeed, and not bash you down and beat you down till you can't keep going. So that's what the personal bond is. And there's been certain times that I've called. I'm like, hey, can I modify this payment or whatever? And they're like, yeah, plain and simple, easy. You always get somebody on the phone. They all know exactly what they're doing. So the communication and everything, it's super simple.
Tell us, about the payments before and after they were reduced. How much exactly were you paying?
The debt was somewhere around $1,500-$1,600 a month. And with Veterans Debt Assistance, it got pushed down to roughly, it was like $537 a month.
That's substantial.
It cut it well over half. So, it gave you a lot of breathing room. So, you could actually double up payments and still not have to pay what you were paying. They'll change your life, and you can actually put money in your pocket. And they got, like I said, got a system of how you can pay things off. So, it works out. It's a win-win for either situation. Veterans Debt Assistance, they have it laid out. They make it easy for you to be able to, pay the things back and not have to pay what you were paying. And, with Veterans Debt Assistance, they gave me pretty much my life back and freedom of not having to worry about, what am I going to do with all this debt, which made it easier in the long run.
So, Andrew, would you encourage people to go to Veteran Debt Assistance?
100% I would. It was a no-brainer for me. Without Veterans Debt Assistance, I would still be having to find a way to pay $1,500, $1,600 a month versus $537. And the way that I'm having to pay that is it's cut in half. So every 2 weeks is 200 and something coming out. It's a no-brainer with Veterans Debt Assistance.
Was there a time you can remember where you looked at your wife and were like, we can breathe, we can take a breath now. I think this is going to be okay.
Well, I didn't even tell her when I did it. I went ahead and did it because I was like, this is perfect. So I went ahead and did it, and then I went in there and told her after I had already done it. And I think it only took probably, I had to send a couple things of paperwork over there, but it was all over and done in like an hour. And I was already set up to have my first payment taken out, and all I was having to do was wait on the underwriting to sign off on them. So I got it set up right then and that day.
Well, I understand as, part of your process, as you were starting to put things together, you kind of put a pause on the business. Moving forward now, are you looking forward to perhaps starting things back up again once you get things a little bit more level?
I'm going to start things up again in about this time next year. I'm going to plan on going 100%. So I'm just making baby steps on it right now, where I can still sell stuff. I have customers that I know that I can sell it to, and instead of just jumping back in and trying to go full speed, because that's not going to work. It's just, you're going to, kill your business doing it that way.
So clearly before, coming to the tools and the resources through VDA, you weren't sure if you were going to be able to start back up again, but now you're inspired that you can do it again.
Exactly. And the thing that got me is I was too nice. I wanted to sell, stuff to everybody. Like, me selling one pack of seasoning to them is going to cost me 24 packs. And then, you start getting all that inventory, and then it's like, you're stuck with it. And then now that I found a solution, it's going to be possible to get back up and running again.
You've talked about you have a lot inside you that keeps driving and keeps going and believes in yourself. Might be a lot of men and women out here that don't really have that faith, particularly if they've made big mistakes. What do you have to say about being able to forgive yourself and to move on?
You can't do it all at once. You got to take every day as it comes. You have to have a game plan. Nobody's perfect. Nobody will ever be perfect. But, there's ways that you have to handle yourself in certain situations and stuff, because you're going to make mistakes, but it's the way, it's easier to make a mistake than it is to fix something. So it's about how you handle yourself, and don't be scared to ask for advice. Don't be scared to ask for help, because, it's like I was telling you about all the old men at the golf course, all the stuff I learned from them, it's taught me way more than what I ever expected to know about stuff like that.
You want to make sure that you heed good advice and wisdom, and you take it, and you don't just let it pass by you there. Looking ahead to the future, is it important to you? We talk about, once you make a mistake, not repeating the same mistakes. What's changed about you? What are the things that you won't do moving forward, particularly when the business gets restarted and you start moving forward?
Everything that I did in the first place, but I'm not going to repeat. I mean, I'm going to have to repeat some of it, but I know, what to be looking out for and paying more attention to. I mean, it's not all about money. You can make a lot of money, but you just got to be careful how you make it, because, having too many customers at one time can put you out of business. People don't realize, because, you're having to pay, as much money as you're having come in.
But the outlook is good now, and you're getting yourself to where you can make plans. That's what you couldn't do before, is you were just trying to keep and play catch up.
Now you can actually trying to figure out who was going to call on the phone that day, or, but I got it situated now.
And I guess you've shared with me a little bit of wisdom off camera about, once you clear some of this debt and you get in a position, that extra money that you feel is coming in, that's not extra money.
No, I'm going to act like it was never there.
And when it comes to not making mistakes, not repeating mistakes, part of that also has to be that, once you start to reduce this debt and get yourself and your finances under control, that doesn't mean all of a sudden, this extra $2,000-$3,000 a month, now we can get that boat or get that motorcycle. You've got to be diligent. You've got to be responsible moving forward.
Exactly. I would most likely, what I'd probably do is throw it back in the company, either that or sit on it, because I'm definitely not going to go make some extravagant purchase. Not after having to go through what I've already done with like this situation.
Right.
But it makes you appreciate money and makes you pay attention a lot more to life and financials.
You've clearly learned and understood that you whatever money that you're going to be putting out now is money that's going to work for you, not just money to show things.
Exactly.
What are some of the ways that you'd like to share with other people who might be watching our conversation here, why they should take the first step and reach out?
All people are different. There's nobody the same, and a lot of people worry about what people think about them and stuff like that. And and until you realize that you're going through an issue, or you have an issue, that you can't do it all on yourself. I mean, if you can't pay it all on your own, you need to reach out and ask for some advice. And it's not hard to, once you do, and you'll actually feel a lot better at the end of the day, instead of just like holding it all in. Because there was times I wanted to act like nothing was going on, and then those people would call and just get me all mad, and then I was like, something's got to give.
Now that we're kind of looking on the other side of things, we're over the hump, what we say are your biggest takeaways? What are the things you learned most about going through the experience of almost losing everything to finding a way out? I
mean, I already appreciated things, but I appreciate them at a whole different level, compared to the way, that I used to be. And I look at life a lot different, of how easy like one choice could make or break, if you know what I'm trying to say. So it just makes me really pay attention a lot more, because things can be gone in the blink of an eye.
And now you have, more to live for, particularly when we're talking about you have a wife and kids. I mean, you got to keep that in mind. That's got to be the crux of everything you do. It's got to be the bottom line of every decision you make moving forward.
Oh yeah, exactly. Because it's not just me and her. I got two little ones running around now, so they're not old enough to make all the decisions on their own. So the decisions that we do make, we have to make it for them and make sure we're making them in the right way.
At some point, you want them to be proud of you. What do you hope they're most proud of, their dad?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Maybe just to be proud that, the way that they were brought up and the way that we raised them, so they can be, appreciative of things and see the things that we've learned from being the age that we are now. And they'll be able to already have a piece of paper in front of them, basically tell them how to live life. And these are the curveballs and stuff that's going to be thrown at you and stuff like that.
I have to ask you, a lot of people during this period of time we're talking about, during the pandemic and the lockdowns, the financial strife that happened, it broke up a lot of homes, broke up a lot of marriages. What do you think were the keys that kept you and your wife through all these troubles to be on the other side here?
I'm not going to say we didn't not have the conversations about money, because, I'd hear the word money one time and I would just get pissed off, didn't even want to talk about it and act like it was the end of the world. And then, it just finally took me a while to like open up and start talking about it, because I was like, if I can't talk to her, then, who else am I going to talk to? So, I just kind of came to the reality of the things, and started listening to her and heeding her advice and stuff. And, it turned out to work pretty good.
We got to listen and be heard.
Exactly. You just got to kick that pride factor down just a little bit. And just realize, a woman's got something to say. I guarantee you're probably going to want to listen to it.
It takes a team. It's not, I know a lot of times we like to talk about it. I just went out there and I got the tools and I got my stuff together. You really got to get everyone involved.
What's that saying? Rome wasn't built in a day.
Rome wasn't built in a day. We have these cards here. I want to do some of these cards. All right.
Let's see what we got.
Let's see what we got here. And I'm not going to read the ones I read to you off camera because that wouldn't be fair.
I still don't have an answer to that one either.
All right. Tell me something you have never told anyone before. That's a good one.
I mean, could it be that I haven't told somebody in like the last 2 hours?
That works for me.
First time I ever had makeup on my face.
Well, you look fantastic.
I appreciate it. So do you.
Keep talking about you're going to take her on the road with you. Make sure we get you powered up there. All right, let's try another one here.
I thought it was going to feel all different. I just don't even know it's on there.
Hey, it happens later. You're going to feel different later. And
She
you're
just
gonna
comes by there.
How much do you accept yourself, have positive thoughts about yourself, have healed your wounds, and fully love who you are? Do you think you've healed a lot of wounds?
I've healed a lot of wounds, but like, to be honest with you, when you read it like that, I don't know, if I'm 100% like in love with myself, because being that, I've got a family, I'm more worried about them, instead of me. Now, like, I will be like selfish here or there if I want to go play golf or something like that. But, I kind of try not to be as selfish as like what I used to be. But, I feel a lot better about myself than what I did in the past.
One thing that you clearly give off is you're authentic. You're the real deal. Do you feel that you're 100%? You give people 100% of who you are?
I mean, I've had a lot of things happen in life, like, good and bad. And, I'm an open book. If you want to know, I've got stories. I've got nothing to hide. I feel like life's too short not to, have good conversations or sit there and not smile.
If there was one singular idea that had the most profound impact on your life, what would that be?
Listening to other people's feelings or emotions and stuff like that. Because I'm not emotional at all. Like I told you, my father died. I think I cried for like 5 minutes, and that was it. So I'm not really emotional, and that's like, I put up like a barricade. So, doing stuff like that and listening to other people would probably be the answer to that.
Is there anything about being profoundly in debt that's embarrassing? Is there anything about that shut you off during that period of time that you were ashamed? Was there any shame in that?
Not really, because it just happened also like quick, and I was like, I want to get out of it, that I never really had the time. If you think about it, yeah, you feel like after it's all said and done, you feel it. But, the way that I was going through it, it was all just happening, and I was trying to be in debt and get out of debt at the same time. So I wouldn't sit there and just like dwell on the past, because I wanted to do something about the future, I mean, that's how I was.
Do you have any advice for, let's say there's someone who's watching our conversation here today and is in the situation you were in just a couple of years ago? What advice would you give them? Feel
free to pick up the phone and call them, call us. We can do another show and tell them the steps of what to do. I mean, it's not that hard, and you got people that work for you, people that care about you, and you can change your life around in one phone call. They're not there to judge. They're there to help you. They get you the best price. They work with you.
Was it easy to do? I mean, was it easy? Are the tools easy? Tell me a little bit about that.
I think the hardest thing was I had to get the contracts. That was the hardest thing to do out of the whole process. And then once you send it over, it's over and done. They already have it. They have a science to it figured out. So they do a good job on it.
What would you say to a young person, perhaps they've enlisted in the Army, they thought they were going to do one thing and things changed in the middle of it. Should they be discouraged? Well, do you have any words of wisdom or advice, particularly because things change. The situation around the world is changing every single day. What you signed up for when you joined the military may not be what you end up doing. What wisdom can you give?
I'd go in there with an open mind and just have as much fun as you can, because, you know, life's going to throw curveballs at you. But, you know, be prepared to expect the unexpected, because something's going to happen. But, you know, it's all about how you enjoy it. It's like I was telling you, we're just sitting here laughing about old stories. If I could do it again, I'd go back in there and do the same thing I did. I wouldn't change nothing about it.
Some people have fear. They're afraid that if I really lay the papers on the table, maybe I've even shared with my wife how deep in debt we are. How do you get over that fear of, when we really look at things, we might see just how bad we are?
By doing the program, it makes it easier, because not only will the people stop calling you, then you got a payment plan and everything's organized, so you can avoid a big chunk out of all of that, you know. And it's not something that's going to be fixed overnight, but the people will stop harassing you. You don't have to, you know, deal with all that, and you'll have a plan that's already, you know, exactly how much money's coming out, you know, each month. I mean, it's plain and simple. And then if you got a question, oh, I can't pay for this month, they'll work with you. They'll modify it.
So they are flexible.
Mm-hmm. Super flexible, and they're super easy to talk to. And then their webpage on the phone is, you know, I use it off the phone. Super easy. It tells you how much money's in there. It tells you, hey, we want to try to, for example, if you have a $5,000 debt, okay, we're gonna try to settle at $2,500. They'll show you what debt they're going to pay off first. They'll show you how much money's in your, like, little bank thing that you got built up. So, I mean, it's plain and simple.
Easy to use, plain and simple. Mm-hmm. And nice people. You mentioned that before.
Super nice, super nice.
Is that important?
I'll put it this way. I even called the guy back that I dealt with. I was like, hey, see if you can do something about this SBA loan, knowing I already knew he couldn't, but I was just trying, like, hey, I don't feel like having to pay this $140,000. He starts laughing.
Well, it's not about how you feel about it.
Oh, I know. But it was actually, I don't know, I actually kind of had a good time. Felt like more relieved by doing it.
You rarely hear that
about
it.
I felt good at the end of the day. You know, I was like happy. I'm like, shoot, better have a little extra money, you know, put it up somewhere. And then on top of that, you can even make extra payments to it if you want, to speed the process up. Because I think it's like 3 years, 36 months is how long they want to pay all that stuff off. So it's not too terribly long.
Would you say generally now you're a happy person?
Oh, yeah. My wife gets on to me. She says, you don't smile enough, but I mean, I always am. She's like, oh, you got to show your teeth and start going,
Start wearing makeup.
Apparently. If I let her know this, she'll be like, I want you to be my test dummy.
Well, Andrew, I'm telling you, you are not only a prime example of a person who's brave, you're straightforward, you're a straight shooter, you're honest, you're authentic, you did what you have to do, you stuck with it, whether it's whatever happened in the military, moving on to here and getting your situation with your business and your debts put together there. And I can't thank you enough for sharing your story here. It's going to mean a lot to a lot of people.
Oh, appreciate it. Glad we can help out. Let the story be told, because it's not as hard as what you think it is. I actually got people that actually care.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, just leave them in the comment section below. If you want to watch more of our videos, just click on the screen.